began extremely innovative in its time and remains a niche in the Arab world as a beacon of American-style liberal arts education. And as a liberal arts person myself, I always salute that because it's the best education. In that part of the world, in Beirut, it is kind of literally and figuratively an oasis. And it's a tough neighborhood which forces the people who run that university to be leaders. The person we're about to hear from took the reins in 2015 and has had a tumultuous ride between the uprisings related to the government itself, the pandemic, and most recently the horrific explosion which we've all witnessed. But his predecessors in the 1980s faced true peril, kidnappings, assassinations, an iconic building on the campus was blown up. These are circumstances which force people into leadership positions, whether they're the faculty or the students. And that is what we're seeing right now there, at persistent, courageous leadership in the face of all kinds of assaults against the very foundations of the institution. So please welcome Dr. Fadlu Khoury, the 16th president of the American University in Beirut.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Miles. I'm going to try to stay under 7 minutes. It's a pleasure and honor to be with friends like Jose and Patrick, and of course, Lejeune. Jose is also my boss because he's one of our trustees. So it's a privilege to be here. Yeah, I think Jose covered a lot of the points I was going to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about the American University of Beirut, our evolving role, and specifically the idea of developing ethical leaders. So the American University of Beirut, as you said, we're 154 years old. We've been developing leaders at the core of our mission for a long time, including more individuals who wrote and signed the UN Charter on Human Rights than any other organization, as well as the Charter of the United Nations than any other university. But like many other universities for the last 200 years conservatively, we've been doing it just that, conservatively. There hasn't been a tremendous evolution in higher education. So it forces us to look, especially now with the perfect concatenation of crises between the Lebanese uprising, stagflation, the collapse of the Lebanese economy, COVID-19, and now this tremendous explosion that defaced or destroyed 40% of Beirut. We have to look at what we're doing. Are we generating the next generation of leaders? Are we guiding them? Are we supplying them with the proper tools to grow? And from that perspective, we have to step back and look at what are we doing? The leading universities. Well, we should be in the business of developing tomorrow's ethical leaders. And what does a university offer? It really should, at the core, offer 5 things to a student. 1, self-actualization. They should leave here really knowing who they are, self-knowledge, self-confidence. The second is the ability to question a subject or a matter based on the evidence. Someone should leave the university with a political opinion and view, but they should be able to sift through truth and untruth. The third is, no question, they're parents and they expect to have some functional skills to participate in society. And the fourth category is really citizenship. It needs to be ethical, enduring, reproducible. They have to be grounded in values, as Jose said. And then they have to be able to, frankly, replace us. They are the workforce and the faculty of the future. So they have to be able to assess things. And when we assess things, going back to Jose, the question you just asked him, Miles, I don't think we can continue with the purely didactic education. And our project with Earth and with Jacera and with the Kellogg Foundation, which started 2 years ago, was really about transformative change within selected and interested universities, focusing on agriculture and other sustainable matters to say, can we move towards this tripod that Jose and Earth and others have pioneered, which is experiential learning, didactic, in-person learning in classrooms, and distance learning, course, we're all having to accelerate that because of COVID-19. So how do we do this? We're committed at AUB to this project. Some of the expected impacts are improvements in environmental sustainability, climate change and migration, adaptation, social, environmental, and economic improvements, and more ethical leadership, and also more income equality. So I'll start with very briefly the question of Lebanon. Lebanon, in addition to facing all of these challenges, has one of the worst debt to GDP ratios at 160%. Official unemployment just crossed 35%. That's optimistic. Youth unemployment has certainly crossed 50%. Poverty rate now has reached 55%. When people continue to lose their jobs, we had to ourselves let go of people because of this inequality. So part of that difficult challenge is to look inward and to say, are we doing everything we can? Because if you look at the leaders of the United States, Europe, Great Britain, Lebanon, and the Arab world, most of them are educated at universities. So the simple question is, why are they doing such a lousy job? Well, maybe they're not doing a lousy job because they're lousy people. I'm someone as a lifetime thoracic oncologist for the last 25 plus years. You try to look at what's good in people. Maybe we're not arming them with the proper tools. And part of that is to look and say, what should we be teaching people so they can self-actualize, develop self-knowledge? And part of that is to restore a sense of balance between what really serves society and what doesn't. Because at the end of the day, what do we want our best graduates to do? We want them to discover new knowledge, as all universities do. We want them to serve the community, especially those less fortunate than them. And we want them to be able to teach those skills, teach them whether at universities or in their workplaces. And here, I think it's critical to realize that at this moment, Lebanon has a tremendous need. The American University Beirut Medical Center did surge to take care of 500 patients affected by the explosion in the first hour. Our Center for Civic Engagement is actively participating in cleaning up houses and rebuilding Beirut through our the Ardak initiative. Our Faculty of Agriculture and Food Sciences is donating food boxes, and we're working on post-disaster relief. So can we keep that up? Or when things get better, will we go back to teaching kids in classes and saying, just get an A? Because the way we've done it for the last 230 years, and Ezra Stiles, the former president of Yale University, was one of the fathers of the exam, one of the worst ways to assess things. We have to, I think, look at new methods. Is it good to tie learning and assessment by exams or by essays? I think if we take that tough, hard look at ourselves and the way we're doing it, I think we'll admit that there are better ways to assess an individual's work than how well they do on an SAT or on a university exam. So I think by looking inward, by being innovation, by having this sort of partnership, I do believe universities can help in this postmodern world, not only to serve those less fortunate, but to develop really better, more ethical leaders to run universities and, most importantly, countries and enterprises. And I'll stop there.
First of all, before we get too much deeper into the educational discussion, our hearts go out to you, given what you're contending with there. The explosion was bad enough, but all the pre-existing conditions that you alluded to have just put you in kind of a perfect storm scenario. How's the university doing? How are you doing personally? What can we do to help you? Most important.
Thank you for asking. I think the university is still in shock, as its community is. I'm hearing statements from very learned and capable people saying this was worse than the Civil War, which of course it's not. If you look at the values, the first year of the Lebanese Civil War, 55,000 people died. Because of the depression of the economy, COVID-19, everything else, 175 people died, despite the magnitude of the blast, and 6,000 were injured, 300,000 dwellings were destroyed. But the psychological trauma, Miles, to our faculty, students, families, people are rushing to the airport in this great unknown. And our goal as a university is to stabilize that. That's why we brought together this consortium of 11 not-for-profit private universities. That's why, in addition to looking after ourselves, we're having to help the 5 other major teaching hospitals, 3 of which had far more devastation than us, to help them. And to say, look, it's not all about us. Yes, we're traumatized, but others are hurt even more badly. And I hope that we will survive as a community of hospitals, a community of universities, and here heal the mental and physical trauma so that we can move on and pick up pieces.
All right.